Very warm welcome. I'm Nigel Waterston. I'm Chairman of the Equity Release Council, and this is the first such debate the Council has organised. It is a very good moment to draw breath and take stock as to how this government, and indeed any government, is going to tackle the problems of funding ever-lengthening retirements.
Actually, we think there could be both winners and hopefully not too many, but losers from these reforms. I think there are risks perhaps for small savers who are lent on to pay off debt they could afford to continue to service. And there's risks around scams or people ending up in very poor value accounts.
Do you feel slightly torn on this, in the sense, as an economist, I both feel for most people it is probably right to think about insuring against longevity, which is what annuities do, but that seems terribly illiberal to force people to do that.
You might be perfectly able to manage your funds at 65, but are you going to be able to at 85? And I think there are big questions there.
This sector has been and is being very innovative. Drawdown, of course, which now represents 2/3 of plans, allows people who are asset-rich and income poor to boost their income. We've seen variations where people can pay the interest and then they can opt to go into roll-up. We've seen other variations more recently. People can pay part of the capital as they have funds available. And I think we'll see ever more innovation in the sector.
Well, MMR's clearly had a big impact on this. Lenders are not lending to older people in the main, and that has played into the hands of the equity release area. And it involves a whole range of questions around, will you keep your benefits? What will the inheritance tax position be, etc. So it's a hugely complex area, and clearly another area where advice is key.
It really is striking, as we've heard, that 70% of people say, well, what I really, really want is a guaranteed income for life. But then when you say to them, so what you want is an annuity? Oh, no, I don't want one of those. So I think it's for the industry to find a different term for what is effectively an annuity.
Do you really want to be managing a buy-to-let property in your 80s? So I think we need to think over time as well as across the demographics.
If you're a homeowner, that's where most of your assets are. If you've got a bit more, the last thing it would be sensible usually to do is put more of that in a home.
I can walk up my high street in Fleet in Hampshire and see 2 adverts today looking to promote buy-to-let through the pension freedoms, and that frankly is frightening.
More and more advisors are going to be required to advise on the whole waterfront. They can't advise on equity release without talking about pension pots and vice versa, and looking at every available pot of wealth people have. And doing it in silos anymore just isn't going to be enough, I think.
Complex administrative arrangements have really reduced its value, and according to the government's own figures, it's only going to benefit 1 in 8 people, and most of whom will either be better off or those who actually need very high levels of care. So really, if you think about it, the tide has gone out, the tide of state support for care funding, leaving a lot of people exposed.
If I was the care minister, I'd be very worried at the moment about the Conservative manifesto, which said we will guarantee that you will not have to sell your home to pay for residential care, because actually that clearly is what you're going to have to do under current policy. So I don't know how we're going to turn that around.
This is what I don't understand about the care debate. People with houses should spend it on their care.
I mean, what we do have, as I say, is a single-tier pension and significantly more generous benefits for the very lowest income pensioners than we've had in the past. I think the danger is we will have more people on the very lowest levels of income, perhaps just above the poverty line, but close to the poverty line than we have at the moment.
We have seen over the last year a huge increase in the number of people saving, but actually we're heading over the next few years to one of the lowest savings ratios we've ever had. Huge crisis, which actually is being ignored. And I think major challenges there.
It's not all doom and gloom. I mean, there's what I referred earlier to as living inheritance. As Paul said, the percolating of this unprecedented wealth down through the generations. And also auto-enrolment into pensions is hugely important if we get it right. 5 million already auto-enrolled, another 5 million to go. If we can get,
raise the contributions.
you took the words right out of my mouth. But I was just about to say we need to get those contributions up. One thing I agree with Steve Webb about, the outgoing pensions minister, is that we need to bring forward the review promised for 2017, get those contributions up and get into auto-escalation, whereby people don't have to, if they get a pay rise, automatically their contributions go up. Because otherwise we're going to have another generation of very disappointed people looking at their pensions.
It's been fascinating, a real cross-section of opinion, lots of great questions coming from the audience. I think what today's debate has really cemented in my mind is the desire amongst a lot of people in this room, stakeholders, advisors, whoever they are, to see the market for this to grow. They can see huge opportunities here, especially in the retirement lending space, as I would describe it. Because I think even as an equity release lender, and we're the third largest in the market, what we can see is the opportunities beyond the borders of equity release into the wider retirement lending space, and some of those were discussed today. We talked about buy-to-let, we talked about funding for care. So there are huge opportunities here, and so it's very exciting to hear all those different opinions. It's great.
I thought the debate was interesting and varied, which was good. I think the breadth was quite interesting for starting at the financial end and ending at the care end, so quite a different end of the spectrum. Going to these kind of debates certainly give you time to fuel new ideas and get a better or a different view on what people think of equity release. It is I think the discussion summarised it well, that it is a useful and needed product. It needs to be advised properly because it's not for everyone, but it is an essential product for some people. I thought it was actually really well represented in the discussion.